Before the God of the Bible, there were other gods, powerful black gods who shaped the world with their wisdom, strength, and divine influence. These gods were revered by entire civilizations long before the stories of Jesus Christ, and their legacies were carefully hidden, erased from the pages of history. What if I told you that the truths surrounding these ancient African deities are far more than myths? What if their stories, once buried in the sands of time, are still woven into the fabric of our religious beliefs today, deeply influencing the spiritual foundations of the modern world? For centuries, we've been taught that the origin of faith, the understanding of God, and the principles of resurrection and judgment came solely from the Bible. But what if those stories were not the beginning, but a continuation of something far older? Osiris, the god of life after death, his death and resurrection. Does this remind you of the story of Jesus Christ? Could the very foundations of Christianity have been shaped by the gods of ancient Africa? And if so, why have we never been told the truth? In this video, we will uncover the hidden connections between the gods of ancient Africa and the biblical stories we know so well. We'll dive deep into the powerful legacy of deities like Osiris, Isis, Anubis, and how their influence permeated not only African civilizations, but also left an indelible mark on Christianity, Judaism, and other major religions. You will come to see that the resurrection myths, the concept of divine judgment, and the eternal struggle between good and evil are not new ideas introduced by the Bible. They are ancient, universal truths passed down through the generations, originating from the very heart of Africa. Together, we will explore why these truths have been concealed for so long, and what we can learn from rediscovering the gods that once ruled the world before the Bible. Get ready for a journey that will change the way you view spirituality, history, and your own identity. The gods of ancient Africa, long hidden in the shadows of history, have left an indelible mark on the spiritual landscape of the world. Their influence has not only shaped African cultures, but has subtly woven itself into the very fabric of modern religious beliefs. The gods of Egypt, Nubia, and other ancient African civilizations were not mere deities, but symbols of cosmic order, morality, and the eternal struggle between life and death. These gods, Osiris, Isis, Anubis, were seen as the rulers of the divine, the masters of life's mysteries, and the guardians of the soul's journey after death. The story of Osiris is a powerful example of the influence these gods had on the spiritual narratives we are familiar with today. Osiris, the god of resurrection and the afterlife, was killed by his brother Seth, who sought to destroy the divine order. His body was scattered across the land, but his wife Isis, with great devotion and love, gathered his remains and resurrected him, allowing him to continue his reign as the god of life after death. This narrative of death, sacrifice, and rebirth is not only the foundation of Osiris's story, but it also resonates deeply with the story of Jesus Christ's crucifixion and resurrection. Now consider the symbolism embedded in these stories. Osiris's resurrection wasn't merely a physical event. It represented the renewal of life itself. It echoed a deep understanding of the cyclical nature of existence, where death is not an end, but a transformation, a passage into a new form of life. This idea transcended time and geography, influencing countless civilizations that would follow. The idea of resurrection, of life after death, and of divine judgment all stemmed from these ancient beliefs. And as Christianity began to form, these ideas were absorbed, not as a coincidence, but as a deep, foundational truth that had always been a part of human consciousness. The death and resurrection of Osiris became the framework through which many cultures, including Christianity, understood the cycle of life and death. It is no coincidence that the very same themes, the death, the resurrection, the hope of eternal life, appear so powerfully in the Bible. Could these ancient gods have been the source from which these ideas sprang? Isis, the goddess of motherhood, magic, and healing, also offers a profound example of the power of African spiritual traditions. She was revered not only as a mother, but as a protector, a figure of compassion and strength. Her role as the mother of Horus, the divine child, became a central symbol in the spiritual practices of Egypt and the surrounding civilizations. The image of Isis holding Horus in her arms is strikingly similar to the depictions of the Virgin Mary with the baby Jesus, a visual connection that has persisted through time. This is not a mere coincidence. The archetype of the Divine Mother, protecting and nurturing the divine child, is an ancient motif that transcends cultures. In Christianity, the image of Mary with baby Jesus has become an icon of love, purity, and grace. But what if the very foundation of this symbolism was rooted in the spiritual practices of ancient Egypt? What if the story of Isis and Horus had already established this profound connection between the Divine Mother and child long before the birth of Jesus Christ? These connections suggest that the spiritual ideas we hold today are not as unique as we may have been led to believe. The stories of the Bible, while deeply significant, are not isolated from the rich tapestry of ancient religious traditions. They are a continuation of themes and ideas that have been passed down through generations, shaped by cultures, gods, and myths that predate them. The question we must ask ourselves is why this deeper, more complex history has been hidden, obscured, or erased from our collective consciousness. Could it be that the powers that shaped the development of modern religions sought to downplay or even eliminate the influence of these ancient African gods? These gods were powerful. They were central to the spiritual life of millions, and their stories contained wisdom that could challenge the centralized, monotheistic faiths that arose. The idea that the story of God, as told in the Bible, might have been shaped by the spiritual knowledge of African gods threatens the narrative of a singular, isolated truth. And so, much of the ancient wisdom was suppressed, leaving only fragments of the original stories. We are left with the Bible, a text that, while sacred and transformative, has been molded and edited to fit a particular narrative. But what if the Bible, in its original form, contained more than we have been taught? What if it contained the stories of these ancient gods, whose teachings still resonate within the symbols and practices we observe today? To understand the significance of these hidden connections, we must first explore the broader context of African spiritual practices and their impact on the development of world religions. Ancient African gods like Osiris, Isis, and Anubis were not abstract concepts. They were real beings, central to the lives of the people who worshipped them. These gods were seen as the embodiment of divine forces that governed not just the spiritual world, but the physical one as well. The Egyptian pyramids, with their astronomical precision and spiritual symbolism, were built not only as tombs, but as gateways to the divine. The rituals surrounding death, resurrection, and judgment were part of a broader understanding of the universe, where the divine and the mortal were intertwined, and where the soul's journey after death was just as important as life itself. This understanding of the soul, of life and death as part of an eternal cycle, has profound implications for how we view the world and our place in it. The gods of ancient Africa were not just gods of mythology. They were the teachers of life's greatest mysteries. Their stories were not told for entertainment or to pass the time. They were essential teachings about the nature of existence, the power of love, and the journey of the soul. These stories were sacred, passed down through generations, and they were the foundation of the spiritual practices that would eventually shape the major religions of the world. By rediscovering these stories, we can begin to understand the true scope of their influence and the wisdom they carry. We can start to see how these ancient African gods were not just figures from the past, but spiritual forces that continue to shape our understanding of the divine. Their lessons on death, rebirth, justice, and love are as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. And by reconnecting with this ancient wisdom, we can heal the divisions that exist within modern faiths and find a deeper, more universal understanding of spirituality. In the end, the story of Osiris, Isis, and the other black gods of Africa is not just a story of the past, it is a story of the future. It is a story that calls us to remember the wisdom of our ancestors and to reclaim the spiritual power that has always been within us. This wisdom is not confined to ancient texts or forgotten temples. It is alive within each of us, waiting to be awakened. Let us honor the legacy of these ancient gods, and let their wisdom guide us on our journey towards spiritual healing, unity, and divine understanding. When we reflect on the spiritual practices and beliefs that shaped human history, we must confront the uncomfortable truth that many of the divine concepts we hold dear today may not have originated in the way we've been taught. As we continue to unravel the hidden truths of the gods from ancient Africa, we start to see that these deities, Osiris, Isis, Anubis, were not mere symbols, but deeply entrenched in the lives of their worshippers, providing wisdom and guidance that transcended time and geography. These gods represented more than just spiritual power. They embodied the forces that governed life, death, and everything in between. They were connected to the universe, and their stories held profound lessons that we still need to learn today. Take, for example, Anubis, the god of mummification and the afterlife. Anubis's role was to guide souls through the journey of death, ensuring that they were weighed in the scales of justice to determine their fate in the afterlife. This idea of divine judgment, where the actions of the soul in life determine its fate in the next world, is not only central to ancient Egyptian religion, but echoes strongly in Christian beliefs about Judgment Day. The concept of a final reckoning, where we are judged based on our deeds and are either rewarded or punished, has shaped spiritual thought for millennia. The striking similarities between Anubis's judgment of the soul and the Christian idea of the Last Judgment should make us pause and consider, could these beliefs be rooted in a deeper, shared spiritual heritage, one that originated in ancient Africa? Moreover, Anubis's role was not just about judgment, but about protection and guidance. The god was often depicted as a figure who watched over the dead, ensuring their safe passage into the afterlife. This caring, protective aspect of Anubis can be found mirrored in many modern spiritual practices, including the idea that the divine provides protection and guidance through life's trials. Whether it's through prayers, rituals, or the belief in guardian angels, this core concept of protection and care for the soul persists across cultures and religions. Anubis's role in guiding the soul is a profound reminder that spirituality isn't merely about the afterlife, but about how we live, how we honor our soul, and how we carry ourselves through the trials of life. The connection between these ancient gods and the spiritual ideas we hold today is not just academic, it's deeply personal. These gods didn't just exist in the distant past. Their influence has been woven into the very fabric of our modern beliefs. The wisdom they imparted is still alive within us, waiting to be reawakened. This is the beauty of these ancient stories. They are not relics of a bygone era, but living, breathing lessons that guide us today. It's through understanding the roots of these beliefs that we can deepen our spiritual practices and connect more profoundly with the divine. We must also ask ourselves, why have these ancient spiritual truths been obscured, hidden, or downplayed over time? The rise of monotheistic religions, particularly Christianity, played a significant role in shaping how we view divinity today. The idea of one all-powerful God, central to Christianity, was a concept that reshaped how the divine was perceived and who had access to it. In this process, the rich pantheon of gods, goddesses, and spiritual figures from Africa were either diminished or erased. But what if we've been wrong to dismiss the wisdom of these African deities? What if their stories contain not only the origin of many of the ideas we cherish, but also deeper truths about humanity's connection to the divine? The spiritual practices of ancient Africa, rooted in polytheism and the reverence of many gods, have always been about recognizing the divine in all things: life, death, nature, and the cosmos. The Egyptians, for example, saw the gods as active participants in their lives, guiding them through every aspect of existence. The sun god Ra, the goddess of love Hathor, and the god of wisdom Thoth were not just figures to be worshipped. They were integrated into the very fabric of existence. This understanding of the divine was not limited to temples or sacred rituals. It was a worldview that saw the divine in the everyday, in the natural world, and in human relationships. This is where the teachings of ancient Africa can help us today. In a world where spirituality is often compartmentalized or seen as separate from daily life, the African worldview offers a powerful lesson. The divine is not confined to a single day, a place, or a book. It is with us at every moment, in every breath, in every interaction. The ancient gods understood this profound truth, and their stories offer a roadmap for how to live a life that honors the divine, not just in the afterlife, but here and now. As we move forward, we must reflect on how we can reintegrate this holistic view of spirituality into our modern lives. The idea that life and death are interconnected, that the divine exists in all things, and that the soul is an eternal being worthy of protection and care, is a powerful reminder of our spiritual potential. These lessons are not just relics of ancient Egypt or other African civilizations. They are universal truths that can help guide us today. The gods of Africa taught us that spirituality is not a one-time event or a simple set of rules to follow. It is a journey, a sacred path that we walk every day. Whether through the rituals of Anubis, the love and protection of Isis, or the wisdom of Osiris, we are reminded that our spiritual lives are always unfolding, always growing. By understanding the origins of these beliefs, we can enrich our own spiritual practices, embracing a deeper, more profound connection to the divine and to the world around us. But even as we move forward in reclaiming the wisdom of these ancient gods, we must also be aware of the forces that have sought to erase their influence. This ongoing suppression of ancient African spirituality has shaped the way we view the world, limiting our understanding of divinity and our connection to the sacred. But now, as more and more people begin to rediscover these teachings, we can begin to heal the wounds of the past, embracing the wisdom of these ancient gods and allowing them to guide us to a deeper, more authentic spirituality. It is not enough to simply acknowledge the gods of ancient Africa as part of history. We must honor them, learn from them, and let their teachings guide us as we navigate our own spiritual journeys. The wisdom they offer on life, death, love, and justice is a treasure that has been hidden for far too long. It is time to bring these teachings back into the light, allowing them to transform our understanding of the divine and deepen our connection to the spiritual world. In the end, these ancient gods are not just figures of myth. They are guides for how to live a life that is rich with meaning, purpose, and divine connection. The stories of Osiris, Isis, and Anubis are not just stories of the past. They are living teachings that can help us navigate the complexities of the modern world. By embracing these teachings, we can heal, grow, and reconnect with the divine that has always been within us. The gods of ancient Africa, especially those revered in Egypt and Nubia, were not merely figures of worship but profound teachers whose spiritual influence transcended time. These deities provided more than just rituals and prayers. They shaped the very foundation of human understanding about life, death, and the cosmos. Osiris, Isis, Anubis, and others embodied divine principles that guided the ancient peoples in their daily lives, as well as in their preparations for the afterlife. But as we examine the depth of their teachings, we realize that these gods were not just part of a distant past. They were living, breathing forces whose wisdom is as relevant today as it was thousands of years ago. One such teaching is the concept of divine justice, embodied through Anubis. Anubis, the god of mummification and the afterlife, was tasked with guiding the souls of the dead through the intricate process of judgment. In ancient Egypt, the soul would be weighed in the scales of Ma'at, the goddess of truth and justice. The heart, representing the soul, would be weighed against a feather, symbolizing Ma'at's principle of balance. If the heart was found to be lighter than the feather, the soul was deemed worthy of entering the afterlife. But if it was heavier, burdened by sin or wrongdoing, the soul was cast away to face eternal destruction. This concept of divine judgment, where our actions and intentions determine our spiritual fate, is not unique to ancient Egypt. It echoes strongly in the spiritual practices of modern religions, particularly in Christianity, where the soul is judged by God on the basis of one's deeds. However, the teachings of Anubis remind us that justice isn't merely about punishment, it's about balance, truth, and the restoration of harmony. It is about understanding that our actions, thoughts, and intentions ripple out into the world, creating a lasting impact. Anubis's role was not just to judge, but to protect the soul, guiding it through the trials of the afterlife with compassion and care. This lesson is deeply spiritual. Justice in the divine realm is not cold or vindictive. It is restorative and healing, designed to bring balance to the soul's journey. This is the beauty of the African gods. They provide a holistic understanding of the spiritual process, one that integrates morality, justice, love, and compassion into the cycle of life and death. The ancient African spiritual systems understood that life and death are not separate, but part of an ongoing cycle that transcends time. They saw death not as an end, but as a transformation, a necessary passage that leads to a new beginning. The gods taught that the soul, after undergoing the process of judgment, could enter a new life, purified and enlightened. This understanding of death as a transformative journey is radically different from the fear-based view of death in many modern religions, where death is often seen as something to be avoided or feared. But in the wisdom of the ancient African gods, death was not something to be feared, but embraced as a natural part of the cycle of existence. This profound understanding of death and rebirth is at the heart of Osiris's story. Osiris's death, his dismemberment by his brother Seth, and his resurrection by his wife Isis represent the eternal cycle of life, death, and resurrection that governs the universe. In Osiris's story, we find a powerful metaphor for human existence. Just as Osiris was brought back to life, so too can we experience spiritual renewal even after the darkest of times. This theme of resurrection is central to the teachings of Osiris, and it is no surprise that it later became a cornerstone of Christianity, where the resurrection of Jesus Christ symbolizes victory over death and the promise of eternal life. The lesson here is that life is not linear. It is cyclical, and within each cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, there is the potential for growth and spiritual awakening. This message resonates with us today as we face our own challenges. We are reminded that even in the darkest times, when we feel lost, defeated, or disconnected from our true purpose, we have the potential for resurrection, for renewal, for spiritual awakening. Just as Osiris was brought back to life, so too can we rise from the ashes of our struggles and transform into something greater. Isis, the goddess of love, magic, and healing, plays a pivotal role in this spiritual transformation. Isis's love for Osiris is not just a romantic or familial love, but a divine love that transcends the physical realm. Her role in Osiris's resurrection symbolizes the transformative power of love, the kind of love that heals, restores, and brings about renewal. This love is not just a passive feeling, but an active force that works to restore harmony, bring peace, and renew the soul. Isis's love is the kind of love that sees beyond the surface, beyond the pain, and into the divine potential of every being. This is a love that doesn't give up, a love that works tirelessly to bring light to the darkest corners of existence. The story of Isis and Osiris teaches us about the power of unconditional love. In our modern world, where love is often transactional, conditional, and temporary, the love of Isis stands as a reminder that true love is eternal and transformative. It is a love that transcends death, transcends hardship, and transcends time. This kind of love is not limited to romantic relationships, but is a force that can heal the soul, uplift the spirit, and transform our lives in ways we cannot even imagine. This lesson on the transformative power of love is deeply healing. It reminds us that love, when it is pure and unconditional, has the power to heal not only our own wounds, but also the wounds of others. Just as Isis's love for Osiris brought him back to life, so too can our love for ourselves and others bring about profound healing and renewal. This love is not just about feeling affection, it is about actively participating in the spiritual and emotional well-being of ourselves and those around us. It is about nurturing the divine spark within each person and encouraging them to rise just as Osiris did. The gods of ancient Africa, particularly Osiris, Isis, and Anubis, offer us timeless wisdom that transcends their cultural origins. Their teachings on justice, love, death, and resurrection are not confined to the ancient past. They are living lessons that can help us navigate the complexities of modern life. By understanding these ancient beliefs and practices, we can enrich our own spiritual lives and reconnect with the deeper truths of existence. The gods of Africa were not just spiritual figures. They were guides who offered a roadmap for living a life that honors the divine, that embraces the eternal cycle of life and death, and that understands the transformative power of love and justice. By reconnecting with these teachings, we can find healing for our souls, peace for our hearts, and purpose in our lives. The wisdom of the African gods is not just about understanding the past, it is about understanding the present and finding the strength to heal, grow, and transform. This is the gift that the gods of ancient Africa offer us, the knowledge that we are never alone on our journey, that we are always guided by divine love and wisdom, and that no matter how dark the night, there is always the promise of resurrection and renewal. As we draw this journey to a close, we are left with the profound truth that the ancient gods of Africa, Osiris, Isis, Anubis, and others, were not mere stories from the past, but living, breathing forces whose wisdom still echoes in our lives today. The teachings they left behind are not bound by the constraints of time or geography. They transcend eras, cultures, and even religions. They are universal truths, eternal principles that resonate deeply with our shared human experience. What we have uncovered through their stories is not just ancient history, but a blueprint for how we can live our lives today. From Osiris's death and resurrection, we learn that no matter how dark our moments may be, there is always the possibility of renewal. His story of being broken, scattered, and then reborn reminds us that even in our lowest points, we can rise again, stronger and wiser. The lessons of divine judgment from Anubis, where our actions on earth have lasting consequences in the afterlife, call us to live with intention, with purpose, and with awareness that every action we take echoes in eternity. But it is not only through these ancient gods that we find healing and wisdom. Their stories have been passed down to us through millennia, woven into the very fabric of modern religions, including Christianity. The themes of resurrection, love, divine protection, and judgment found in the Bible are not just born from one source, but are deeply connected to these ancient truths. These teachings are timeless because they speak to the universal human experience, the cycle of life and death, the journey of the soul, and the search for divine understanding. Now we must ask ourselves, what do we do with this knowledge? How do we apply the wisdom of these ancient gods to our lives today? It is easy to dismiss these stories as mere myths, but when we stop and truly reflect, we see that the wisdom they impart is just as relevant now as it was thousands of years ago. The same divine energy that flowed through Osiris, Isis, and Anubis flows through each of us. We are part of the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth, and by embracing this truth, we can live with more purpose, more clarity, and more peace. If this video has touched your soul, if it has brought light to your heart during dark times, I invite you to share that light with others. Your support, whether it is through a like, a comment, or a subscription, helps keep this message alive. It allows me to continue sharing these ancient teachings, to reach more people who are searching for truth, healing, and a deeper connection with the divine. Every small gesture of support, every word of encouragement, is a gift that allows this journey to continue. If you have felt a connection with these teachings, if the wisdom of the gods of ancient Africa has spoken to you, I encourage you to leave a comment. Share your thoughts, share your experiences, and join in the conversation. This is a community of seekers, a space where we can explore the mysteries of the divine together. Let's continue to uplift each other with the light of ancient wisdom, and let's create a world where love, justice, and renewal reign. Thank you, from the deepest part of my heart, for being a part of this journey. Your energy, your support, and your presence are what make this possible. May the wisdom of Osiris, Isis, Anubis, and the divine truth of ancient Africa guide you every day. May you feel the divine light within you, and may it guide you toward healing, peace, and spiritual growth. Remember, you are never alone on this journey. Your connection to the divine is eternal, and together we walk this path of light, truth, and transformation.